Hi there, Megan Thompson here with Megan Thompson Coaching, and today we are going to cover how to help your highly sensitive child who is struggling in the school setting, and it might not be what you think. So let's stay focused here. We help parents of highly sensitive children break out of the meltdown cycle in as little as 8 weeks. Now, what is children? Ages 2 through 18. So I'm talking about kids who are struggling in school who might not consider themselves kids anymore, right? Teenagers as well as younger children. And when we talk about the understanding of what I mean by struggling, I'm not just talking about the kids who are having meltdowns in school. So make sure that you stay tuned to today's show. The challenges that so many parents are struggling with their sensitive kid are usually happening outside of what meets the eye. And so it's really important for us to dive into this topic today. Now, if your child is in a meltdown cycle, it's also important to understand that meltdown cycle might be internal, and that's why we call it the shutdown cycle, because that's what some of you describe your child's behavior as, right? Your child is frozen. I affectionately call these children icicle children when they first come in to work with us, with their parents leading the show. And this is true for sensitive teenagers, right? Adolescents who are holding it all in and may or may not explode at home. They might implode at home. I don't want to talk to you about it. You have no idea what's going on. Leave me alone. You don't understand. And hole up in their room, refuse to go to school, refuse to get out of bed, and struggle significantly. So one of the things that we know parents of sensitive kids ask often, right, what you might be asking yourself is, when do I involve the school? When do I let the school know that my child is struggling? This is such an important topic because so many of you are parenting sensitive children who are actually doing really well in school. They might academically be a star student, or reported to be an angel, or demonstrating compassion significantly with their peers, or demonstrating leadership skills at school, helping mediate other peers, teaching other peers to calm down, something like that. And if any of this is happening, you might wonder if the school needs to be involved at all. So we're definitely going to be talking a lot about all of this today. Now, we'll speak about the obvious. If your child is struggling significantly with their behavior at school, the school is likely interested in helping you or figuring out what's going to help your child manage their behavior, for sure. And so that's definitely part of the conversation. And I really want to make sure that we're covering all highly sensitive children who are having meltdowns or shutdowns at home as well, because this is all related. Now, it's really important to be paying attention to this, because you might be thinking that you're in the clear if your child is struggling only at home. And if the meltdowns are happening at the end of the day, the end of the school day, or at the end of the day before bed, then it's really important to pay attention to going upstream. We talk about it, right? And looking at the root cause for your child's meltdowns. And I have news for you. It is not what happened that day or even sometimes that week. Your child's skill gap isn't in whether or not somebody treated them nicely, or whether or not they perceived someone to be helpful or speaking to them in a scolding manner most of the time. When we think about children who are mistreated, of course, bullying creates emotional strife, and challenges can arise from that. And if your child isn't able to tell you that they're being mistreated in school, then I want to look at other factors as to why that's happening, right? Children who are struggling, who have clear and emotionally connected relationship with their parents, go to their parents for support often. And this is even true for adolescents. It is developmentally inappropriate for a child to withhold emotional stress and strife from their parents. Now, this is something that is really important for us to talk about as a licensed clinical professional counselor and registered play therapist supervisor. one of the things that I learned in my career working with traumatized children, especially children who were traumatized at the hands or neglect of their parents, is that as a mental health professional, we actually had to act as a conduit between the parents and the child. And sometimes we were taught to be a neutral protector. I'm going to say that because the intentions weren't usually enmeshed. They weren't usually inappropriate, especially if a child is struggling due to traumatic parenting or really significant difficulty in parenting, where a parent is mistreating the child. A therapist is expected to support the child in sharing with themselves as a trusted adult what's really going on and work through what's going on and process trauma. Now, if you're parenting a sensitive child and you are not hurting your children, which we know, or on purpose using harmful parenting interventions, right, that are causing some of these meltdowns, then it's so important for you to feel empowered that your child shouldn't be withholding what's bothering them. And if they are, then that means that one of two things. One, they don't have thorough trust in sharing with you where they're stuck. And usually also number two, they don't have thorough trust in being able to handle it. And so they're frozen in figuring it out, right? So they're frozen in asking for help, which is what children naturally do to their parents, with their parents. And then they're also frozen in solving it, which may or may not include parents to solve the problem. But when we think about children who are struggling in school, it's not always academic. It's also not always social. Could be in navigating the rules and understanding the community and watching other children struggle. That could be the difficulty there, rather than just straight up how to talk to people and how to when to set boundaries around when people are mistreating them, right? Because for the most part, in most school settings, children aren't being mistreated. They might be struggling being one of many, right? But that's not the intention in school settings, no matter what type of school, is to intentionally hurt children or intentionally mistreat children, of course, right? So when we look at the setting that your child is having, and we assume the best in this dynamic, what we get to do is take a really clear look at what's going on, and your child is struggling here. That they're struggling here, and that the environment in the home is what is the key catalyst for change. And so that can be really empowering for you if you look at it in an appropriate way, right? Your sensitive child learns best how to advocate, how to manage stress, how to communicate their needs, and how to reach out for help through you as a parent. So it's really important that if you're going to discover with your child what is causing their major stress, right, that you're looking first inward to your child and also to yourself. That your child's ability to tolerate stress or tolerate change is a resiliency issue. Now, am I saying that your child needs to suck it up and push through and never manage their emotions and perform all the time and be an A+ perfectionist? No, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is general everyday peer relationships, general everyday teacher holding the students accountable and doing the best they can, managing class sizes of 25 to 35 and up. Every child managing themselves needs to be able to do that in a way where they don't feel out of control. And your child, if they're having meltdowns or engaging in ineffective behaviors that are dangerous, aggressive, verbally aggressive, calling names, making threats, physically aggressive, hitting, kicking, screaming, or personally aggressive, where they are taking it out on themselves and isolating themselves from those who love them, then these are harmful behaviors, self-harmful, self-destructive behaviors, and your child is miserable. And it's very likely that so are you. And so what's important to pay attention to at this point is that there is a way out of this. And your child's ability to manage stress is a huge part of that equation, but is not the only part. How they learn isn't just through direct coping skills teaching. right? It isn't through lecture. You know what, honey, school is hard and we all get through it, right? That's reassurance. Well, it's a lecture veiled as reassurance is what I should say, right? No, children don't learn through talking, they learn through play. And so it's really important for you to be able to support your child in playfully learning how to manage their emotions, how to acknowledge that emotions are a-okay and that feelings are part of how everyday life is happening, and then also support yourself in changing how you assume your child should be behaving and also experiencing the world. And that requires you to understand your child more. Requires you to understand not just the trait, but what happens when a person with the personality trait of sensory processing sensitivity is stuck in the meltdown cycle. Because that is a family dynamic problem, not a personality trait issue. And that's not explained in the sensitive kid books that are out there, or the parenting books that are out there on this personality trait. So it's really important for us to be paying attention to that, in addition to noticing how you can advocate. Now, teachers are overwhelmed. So I've worked in the school systems. I've led teachers from a clinical standpoint in therapeutic schools, and I've worked directly in public schools as a mental health provider who was pulling kids out for therapy. And so over the course of my career, what I know for sure is that the majority of teachers are wanting the best for their students, and the ones who are showing that they aren't are burnt out and jaded. And so they started off that way, but then they're fried by the system. And so it's really, really critical that you know how to give specific targeted advice to the professionals who are educating your children, because they want to do better and they need direct support. And it's up to you to lead your child in that way through their emotional development, because behavior management isn't something that schools teach or train on in an effective way. You know, so many school systems are teaching behavior management from an antiquated behaviorist approach that was built in the 1960s and debunked in the 2000s, quite frankly. And there are so many professionals in the mental health field that aren't up with the research on attachment and emotion management and resilience and feeling powerful and empowered, growth mindset type focus. And so when we think about how we address this from an emotional management standpoint through strength, it's very important that you learn all about that and how it relates to highly sensitive children, so that you're not trying to convince your kid to feel better and you see it backfire where they double down and tell you you don't understand and that won't work, and they just tell you what you want to hear, and then they're not able to generalize the skill. We see this frequently. So super important, right? All of these things are really important. Being able to understand your child's needs, that's step number one. Number two is collaborating with the teachers and taking a sense of advocacy through authority. And then lastly is being able to teach your child the same, right? Your child should be able to say, I don't like that, or I need help, or I don't understand this. And they should be willing to, to navigate what it feels like to be the center of attention. Highly sensitive children really struggle with that if they don't have the skills to be able to feel secure in themselves. That's a self-concept issue, not an emotional management issue. Highly sensitive children need to be a-okay asking for help, and to be able to practice doing that effectively enough to create a sense of follow-through. And that's what's called self-efficacy in psychology world. I feel capable of doing this and I do it, right? And that process starts from parenting. In the dynamic, we call this phenomenon vantage sensitivity. Your child has a unique way of looking at the world based on their relationship and how they see themselves. And children see themselves through the lens of their parents. They need to be able to unconditionally love ththemselves, and that starts first with you. If you're struggling in setting limits without making threats at your worst of your worst behavior-wise, your child is going to feel like your love is conditional, and I know that you don't want to do that any longer, and it's not your initial intention. It's what happens when you're fried and tired, right? So definitely go ahead and listen to last week's show. We talked about that in terms of what leads, where this exhaustion comes from, especially as school has gotten started for many of you, or those of you who are sending your kids to public or private school. It might be right around the corner, given the date of today's show, and it is so important for you to understand a very clear picture that this is where the pattern lies, right? And the important piece is for you. The focus is around making sure that you are understanding the needs for your family's dynamic and what it is that is most important for your family. And in order to break out of this pattern systematically beyond those key principles that we talked about today, I highly encourage that you speak with our team. If you're ready to break out of this pattern in a way that stops the meltdown cycle in your home, as well as manages your emotional state and supports you in leading the family and breaking out of the family dynamic problem that is causing the meltdown cycle, and help your child be successful in every community, including the school community, then without labels, without feeling like your child has to be labeled in a way that is setting them up for feeling like they have a crutch, or that other people think they have a crutch. It's super important for you to be able to use your child's needs and identity towards what they want and towards reaching their goals, right? So if that's something that you want support with, this is what we help our clients do. And we're happy to talk to you more about that. We'll go ahead and book a call with our team, and we'll cover what you're stuck with, where your challenges are, what's important for your family to prioritize at this time, and then also where your family wants to dream and achieve, right? What your goals are for your family right now and also in the future. And if what we do here as a team at MTC is going to help you break out of the cycle for good, then we will happily share with you exactly what that looks like on that same phone call, and work through breaking out of the pattern immediately. Because if your family is struggling at this level, then it's time to make a change, and there's no reason to wait. All right. So we look forward to supporting you on that conversation. That call is free. And if something is more effective or differently speedy for you to solve the problem, and more necessary for you to solve the problem fast, then we are happy to point you in that direction, because we have a highly specialized team with a very specific specialty. So it is important that we serve families who have the needs that we serve, and that you feel, our clients feel well taken care of, right? All right, so that's it for today's show. Have a wonderful day. Kept it short and sweet for you today, given the fact that everything is going on with the back to